damn thing pretty. Unless you're talking about the bridge and seaport. Even from the seats in the upper decks, you can see the seashore. Tailgate function with the carne asada. Just walk from the tribal building for the Padres, I'm on it. Yeah, cause for the 619, we'll knock you down. Anything for the Brown, put it on the town. Started back rocking the Brown. Ever since we've been knocking them down. Baby said she wanna go to the game. Taught her how to say Padre gang.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 263 of the Talking Friars podcast and YouTube show. I'm your host, Ben Fadden. Season reviews, continue them. Player season reviews, that is. Yesterday went with Joe Musgrove and Blake Snell. Today is October 28th, 2022, by the way. Game 1 of the World Series starts tonight. Today, I'm going to talk about Mike Clevinger and Sean Manaea, two guys who are going to be free agents once this World Series ends, and don't know if the Padres are going to want to bring back either of them, bring back both of them, bring back none of them. We will see. Probably have some more conversations about that in the future. But just talking about their seasons, I'll start with Clevinger first here and then get to Manaea. Both guys I thought were disappointing when all things were said and done. But with Clevinger, it was disappointing. Part of it was the injuries, and I think it's appropriate not just to talk about his 2022 season, but to talk about his tenure with the Padres, because now he's a free agent. Now we can grade kind of his tenure with the Padres and how that trade worked out. And I'll get to that. But 2022, he had a 0.4 Fangraphs WAR, 23 games, 22 starts, 114 in the third innings. His ERA was 4.33. WHIP was over 1.2. 91 strikeouts, walked 35 guys, gave up 20 home runs, hit 10 guys. Look, I'm going to give credit to Clev for battling through the knee injuries. And, Bob Melvin in press conferences and stuff felt like all season long, and especially in the postseason, he gave credit to Clev, and Clev was giving credit to the training staff and stuff for really working with him and getting him ready to pitch in postseason games and allow him to pitch this whole season. Like, I know that has to be tough, right? I'm not a big league player, never played in the big leagues. I don't know how tough that really is to grind through a knee injury all year long, but I'm sure it has to be. I'm sure it's grueling, the rehab and stuff. So credit to him for fighting through that. And I know how much it pained him, after game 4 of the NLCS when he couldn't get an out. He was talking about how this was one of the worst days of his life. And so I definitely felt for him. He wanted to win for the Padres, loved his teammates. He definitely wanted to do it for him or for them, the teammates, and for the city, but it was just disappointing. His play on the field was disappointing. That was not the guy, I don't think, that the Padres were envisioning when they traded for him and gave up, Josh Naylor and Hedges and I think it was Gabriel Arias in that deal as well. Like, they gave up Cal Quantrill, gave up a lot of good guys. And I think if they could redo that trade, they'd probably rather just have the guys that they traded away, to be honest. I mean, maybe they would have found someone else for Hedges or still would have traded Naylor at some point, but I think they'd like to have Cal Quantrill right now over Mike Clevinger, or over what they got out of Mike Clevinger, right? But again, that's in hindsight. Hindsight, it's real easy to look back on it. I'll be the first one to admit I was excited when the Padres got Mike Clevinger in that trade. It's just disappointing looking back on it now that he didn't perform as well as he did with the Indians at that time, compared to the Padres. It just was underwhelming. That the negatives with Clev, it's with injuries. Looking back, I know this is more than just 2022, but 2020 at the end of that season, couldn't make it through that NLDS start. He probably shouldn't have started, but just couldn't throw the breaking ball, and so he had to leave that outing against the Dodgers. 2021, he sat out the entire year because of the surgery. Just didn't stay healthy this year. Obviously, he had the knee issue from spring training. He was dealing with that MCL sprain the whole year because of what happened in spring training. So just the injuries were definitely a factor, but at the end of the day, you do judge if you're on the field, you're healthy to go. You're healthy enough to pitch, and he just didn't. I don't think he met expectations with the Padres. They could bring him back, and he could pitch better, but he just, Bomel, like I mentioned, told the media he's been battling stuff all year. I know that, but I still have to look at what he did on the mound, and I just don't think it was good enough. They invested significant money in him, and bottom line, this year, when it mattered most in the postseason, he ended up pitching a total of 2 2/3 innings, gave up 7 runs. That was in between the Dodgers start and the Phillies start uh, in those 2 postseason games. Wasn't able to get a single out against the Phillies. Against the Dodgers, just not hitting his spots. I don't know if that's bad mechanics from the knee injury. Maybe he couldn't push off, so he was really using his arm more than he's more accustomed to. I don't know. But bottom line, Dodgers start, didn't hit his spots. Trey Turner home run, the Will Smith double, Max Muncy single. Those are just ones that come off the top of my mind. He had the Gavin Lux double, fastball up, just couldn't get through 4 innings in that start. And then the Philadelphia start, the offense gave you 4 runs in that first inning, just right out of the gate. Before you took the mound, you had a 4-0 lead. And to give it right back when you could tie that series up 2-2, that was just a big punch in the gut for me, for Padres fans. I mean, just took all the momentum you had and just flushed it down the toilet, because now after the Phillies scored 3 runs in that first inning, they're thinking, oh, 4-0 lead. Now it's 4-3. That wasn't a big deal at all. We can come back and win this game. It's a 1-run game for the next 8 innings. It just wasn't a big deal for them, right? So that really sucked. I mean, I think it was Hoskins who homered, Harper doubled, and Nick Martinez had to come in and get 3 outs in that first inning. Then he got 3 outs in the second, 3 up, 3 down, 3 up, 3 down in the third. Like, he was tremendous to kind of cover for Clev, but then kind of didn't, because Manaea had to pitch more than probably the Padres wanted. I didn't like Manaea pitching in that 5th inning, but they had to pitch Manaea in the 4th. Probably didn't want to do that if they didn't have to. They probably wanted Manaea to pitch in like an extra inning game. If there was any wacky 12, 13, 14, 15 extra inning game, they probably wanted Manaea. They were probably saving him for that, but they had to pitch him there because they needed it. At least that 4th inning. Again, I disagree with the 5th inning thing, but that's old news. I've been saying that repeatedly over the last weeks, So, yeah, just disappointing from Clev. I mean, had high expectations. When we traded for him, it was that big blockbuster, right? That was 2020, where Preller didn't just acquire Clevinger, he acquired Nola. He just made a lot of deals. I think Trevor Rosenthal, if I remember correctly, maybe that was a deal. Mitch Moreland. I think they brought in Jason Castro to be the backup catcher that year too. So they brought in a lot of guys, and that just didn't work out that great. And Clevenger is a big reason why. So it was disappointing. I personally probably would not bring back Mike Clevinger. Maybe I'll get into that more, you know, later this offseason when the offseason really gets going. But just reflecting on Clevenger, it wasn't a success, I don't think. I mean, he was great to the fans. He embraced the city. And he wanted to do really well for the Padres, obviously, but just didn't work out. At least 2020, 2021, 2022. Obviously 2021 was a wasted year, comes back for this year. And sure, he made starts for the Padres, ate some innings for the Padres, but when it came in the postseason, he didn't help them out. So disappointing. Moving to Sean Manaea here. Another one that was kind of disappointing. Obviously, what we were expecting out of Sean Manaea this year was someone that Bob Melvin trusted, someone that was going to go pretty deep in games, eat innings, quality starts. And that is what we got for a good amount of the season. He finished with a 1.1 Fangraphs WAR, 30 games, 28 starts, over 150 innings. But the ERA 4.96, 1.3 WHIP, 156 strikeouts, 50 walks, 29 home runs. Didn't hit many guys, 3. Yeah, he made, like I said, almost made 30 starts. He ended up pitching 6 innings in 17 of his starts, which was more 6+ inning starts than he had in Oakland in 2021. So that was a positive. But I still see more negatives from Manaea, like Clevinger, than positives. I mean, he couldn't really be relied upon those last 3 months of the year to consistently give the Padres those 6+ inning starts. July had a 5.40 ERA, August a 7.88 ERA, September a 5.25 ERA. He went 6 innings in 5 of his last 15 games, I believe, not including that one-off inning against the Dodgers in September where he was just coming out of the bullpen. That was just his bullpen day, so they just had him get some work in the game. I think it was a blowout at that time. So yeah, it's just disappointing there at the end. And then in the postseason, I know it was 1 appearance, but he gave up that run in the 4th inning. And yes, like I said earlier, I don't think he should have went out there for the 5th inning. I didn't think that was a good decision. I think you could have covered the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th of Game 4 with relievers, Tim Hill, Luis Garcia, Suarez, Hader, guys that were rested. After Martinez threw 3 great innings. Okay, Manaea gave up the run in the 4th. You take him out for that 5th. He gave you the inning, right? But puts him out for the 5th. Maybe that's on Bob Melvin, but also Manaea went out there for the 5th. It's not like he couldn't pitch the 5th. It's not like he was tired, and he didn't perform. I mean, gave up the 2-run home run to Hoskins, gave up the double to Harper, Harper's 2nd double of the game. By the way, in that 4th inning, that was that Bryson Stott single after, I believe, allowing a double to Castellanos to start that inning. He just didn't pitch great. I'm pretty sure it was hard on him as well, just like Clevinger. Like, both of these guys wanted to help the Padres this year, and I know it hurt that they underwhelmed, they underperformed probably when it mattered most. But the bottom line is that's what happened. And so I have to look back on it, not looking at their personal feelings or their regrets, but just the numbers. And the numbers tell the story. They just weren't good enough when it mattered most. And some fans might ask, why was Manaea on the roster, or why was Clevinger on the roster if he wasn't healthy? Maybe you have Chris Matt on there. I'm not even arguing that. Like, if they're on the roster, they say they're fine. And I think Manaea was fine. The velocity was there. He just did not pitch well, period. Um, to recap for Manaea in Game 4 there, that one postseason appearance, and look, it's one postseason appearance, but that's all we have to judge for when it matters most in October. He entered the game with a 4-3 lead in the 4th inning, lost it in the 4th. Game was tied because he gave that 1 run. By the way, in that 4th inning, he was bailed out by a great throw by Profar to nab Stott. He was trying to get to second. And then that was the 2nd out of the inning. Then the 3rd out of the inning was a diving catch on a liner to second base by Crony. So he was bailed out those last 2 outs of that inning. He did not pitch great. I didn't think in that 4th inning. Melvin sends him out there for the 5th, and he gets teed off, teed off of. He got the lead back, by the way, before entering or going back out there for the 5th inning. Soto hit the home run, then gave it right back up. And I think he gave up 5 runs in that outing? I think it was 5 runs. Maybe it was 4. But yeah, it was just very, very disappointing. I'm not saying I expected him to be like Nick Martinez and go 6 up, 6 down or whatever in those 2 innings that Melvin was giving him, but I was expecting him to do better than what he did, and he didn't. I thought that those outings that he had during the regular season where he was pitching out of the bullpen, I was encouraged because the velocity was up. It felt like he was refreshed out of the bullpen. He could just give it his all. Then when he went out for when he came in from the bullpen in the NLCS, maybe he was refreshed, like he had the velocity in there, but it just felt like he was giving up a lot of meatballs. He was throwing a lot of meatballs to those Phillies hitters. So that outing there in the NLCS left a bad taste, I think, in a lot of Padres fans' mouths. And so I don't blame them if they want to sit here and say, I don't want Manaea back next year. I don't want Clevinger back next year. For me personally, I haven't delved too deep into, I haven't thought too much about who I want back or if I want either of them back. I'd probably want Manaea back over Clevinger. I think Manaea can eat more innings than Clevinger. Usually he stays healthier than Clevinger. And Bob Melvin trusts Manaea, and I trust Bob Melvin. So I'd probably lean toward Manaea if I had to pick one. But to be honest, I'd rather use that money on someone better, some players that are better. I'd rather use that money to try to keep Suarez. I'd rather use that money to keep Martinez if we can. Um, that's who I'd rather use the money on, pitching wise, over Clevinger and Manaea, who underwhelmed, I thought, when it mattered most with the Padres this year. So feel free to give me your thoughts in the comments on YouTube, at Talking Friars, on social media, Twitter, Instagram, if you're listening to this on the podcast. I appreciate you listening. Sponsor of this episode was Gaglione Bros, famous cheesesteaks and garlic fries. GaglioneBros.com is the website, Friars Road. That's their main location. You can look that up on the website. Great cheesesteaks, garlic fries, cheesesteak fries, cheese fries. I recommend you check them out if you're going out for lunch or dinner, whatever. They're great food. I really recommend that. So thank you so much for tuning in here. Episode 263. Ben Fadden signing off as your host. I'll be back, with more player season reviews. And if any Padres news pops up, I'll be back, of course, talking about that. Player reviews every day until I get done with them. So, all right, that'll do it. Enjoy game 1 of the World Series tonight, and I'll see you soon.